All right, Mark, it's all yours.
Continue. Okay, thanks. I see that. All right. Hey, thanks everyone. It's good to be doing this with you. I'm going to jump on, switch over here real quick. So I've had this set up for a while, and then the Texas thing happened, and that's on the forefront of everybody's mind right now. And so for that reason, I kind of incorporated the Texas thing into it because I want to talk about what's going on and views on that. I may have to trim some stuff off at the end. I don't want this to go on forever, and I don't want this to be information overload. So with that, I have everything I mentioned on here is on my website, and I'll reference that website a few times, but just know if you're like, oh my gosh, there's too much here. I'm trying to touch on many aspects of this, and in future firesides and whatnot, we'll go more in depth in a specific area. So to begin with this though, so, like they say, it's one of my favorite things. It was not raining, I'm sure. I guess we don't know for sure when Noah started building the ark. So as the emergency prep guy, there's some pros and cons. One of the negatives about it is I'm the one that has to talk about the gloom and the doom and the earthquakes and everything that's going to happen and how terrible life is going to get. The pros of it is nobody's cares when I'm wrong, and as a matter of fact, I'll bet you everyone's praying that I'm wrong in all this. So it's kind of a nice position to be in. You can fail or not fail, you can be wrong and everybody's happy. So referencing the website, really just a quick overview. There's two parts. There's a food storage part, and I'm on and off with putting out weekly emails on food storage. As Texas and other things come up, I kind of deviate from that to cover other things. I covered a COVID, our family went through COVID a couple of weeks ago. I covered that. And then also, here's where it is on the website. You see the up here at the top, the food storage modules. And then I have 19 emergency prep modules. Started as 12, and I just keep on adding them. You can see all the ones on here. I'm going to touch on many of these, including the home manual, bed kits, power, light, and electricity, home preparedness, earthquakes, fire safety drills. It's kind of a lot here, but I will cover them in more. Well, there's more detail on the webpage is the point. If you want to go back to that, here's where it is up. Just the emergency prep module up top. You can click on them. They're all on there. So the point of preparation is to make sure we turn an emergency into an inconvenience. And I think the more prepared you are, the more likely that's going to happen. By the way, if you guys have any questions or on anything, just jump in and interrupt. I should have said that at the first.
And Mark, you could also, anybody that's on, if you don't want to chime in vocally, you could also just post it in the chat, and then throughout I can help moderate those comments that come in those chat.
Oh, very cool. Thanks. So the Texas power outages, most of you probably have friends or family there. I have some friends there, and I was actually able to talk to a gal today about her experience there, and I will incorporate this as I talk about it. For most of them down there, this was an emergency, but it's interesting that this emergency really was, the core problem was a power outage, which you wouldn't think would stem all these issues, but it did. So they were caused by winter storms. There were two storms that came together. It was the coldest they've seen in 72 years with temps down to 0. They're not built for that down in Texas. Those houses aren't designed to handle the cold. So as the temps dropped, people started cranking up their heaters, and demand for electricity started to skyrocket. So the power companies, seeing an impending problem with crashing the grid entirely, decided to start initiating rolling outages. It's basically where they say, okay, we're going to kill power intentionally to certain areas, preserving power to the big downtown city areas, areas with hospitals, the more essential areas. And as the, Texas, like we said, the power plants, they're not really winterized. That was a big part of the problem. And eventually many, if not most of the sources failed due to mechanical reasons, or they just froze. Well, their water treatment plants are also run off electricity. Those quit working. So you can see how this power outage starts to springboard into a bad situation down there. 4.3 million homes and businesses are left without power. And this went on for many days in some cases. It was different depending on where they were. This is a image I pulled off the internet. It's comparing January 31st to February 16th. And you can see how they tried to keep the main downtown cities going, but all the suburbs, all the outside cities were mostly dark. This is just an image, looks like in possibly an apartment complex. I don't know if you call an electrician or a plumber on this one. My wife chimed in, said, no, you call a moving company. She's probably right. We saw this during COVID, of course. Lines were everywhere. And the problem here is people are putting off getting what they need until they absolutely need it. And if you've waited that long, it's just too late. So electricity was the culprit here, and it's our most fragile resource, of course. We've been hearing, they've been telling us for years how fragile the grid system is. Todd Koppel wrote a book called Lights Out. He's got a good interview. I posted it on my webpage under the light, power, and electricity portion about how fragile our grid is. And I would say power outages, as we've seen in Texas, they're our biggest threat. And if you're unprepared for this, they're going to cause a lot more problems. I think our worst case scenario for Salt Lake City is an earthquake in the winter, because you're going to have everything Texas had, including the cold weathers, and you might not be able to habitate your home. And that's encompasses every aspect of emergency prep just to get through that. But we won't get into that extreme right now. The problem is caused by Texas. So heat was an issue. Most houses were run off electricity. Homes got very cold. This gal I talked to today, they saw 40 degrees in their house. And every single day, she said, we were just glad when the power came on, because the next day we were looking at 30. We were planning on 30s. Water supply, it was done. It was, if you had water, that is, if it wasn't already frozen, which most of them froze, it was not safe to drink. So the city put boil orders in place. Well, the residents were unable to boil water because most of the stoves were electric. So now you don't have just an electricity problem. You've got a survival problem here with water. Stores were cleaned out almost immediately when this happened, as always happens. Food spoilage is always an issue when your fridge and freezer quit working, but I suppose if it's 0 degrees outside, you can always throw it out on the back porch or in the garage. Blackouts and brownouts, real quick. So blackouts, you guys know what that is. That's when it goes black, power's out. A lot of the residents, when the power came back on, their appliances didn't work. And that's because they were experiencing brownouts. And if you guys don't know what a brownout is, it comes from the days of the old incandescent bulbs. The city, your house isn't getting all the power it needs. It's getting maybe half or some. So what happens is your light bulb, which requires 60 watts, gets maybe 40. So it dims and it goes brown, and that's where the brownout comes from. And that's fine for your light bulbs. And it's even fine for your electric heaters, which with half the power are going to put out half the heat. But your refrigerators and appliances that require motors, all of a sudden you give them half the power and they still have the whole load that they have to turn, the compressor, they overheat. And you run a refrigerator on a brownout very long, you will fry those motors. And this is happening all over down there. And the residents that didn't fall victim to this realized the problem and said, I'm keeping the power out until, keeping the breakers off until we know the power is back fully. So just because it kind of comes back on, that's not good enough. Loss of electricity caused 4 main issues. We talked about them: water, heating, cooking, and the light. So if any of you have followed me very long, I always talk about the rule of 3s. And that is, when it comes to emergency preparation, always have at least 3 different ways of accomplishing a task. In the case of fire starting, might be matches is 1, flint and steel is 2, lighter is 3. There's your 3. So I'm going to apply that here. At least 3 is the key. So first issue is water. I'm amazed at how many people down there were scrambling to buy or boil water. And I asked this girl, I said, did you store water? And she was embarrassed when she answered. She goes, no. She's like, I grew up in Utah and I'm embarrassed to say we didn't have any stored. They recommend 1 gallon per person per day for 2 weeks. I think they is the Red Cross. This is bare minimum for consumption. It does not cover cleaning. It does not cover sanitation. A more realistic number, 3 to 4 gallons per person per day for 2 weeks. For my family of 5, that's roughly 210 gallons at 3 gallons per person per day for 2 weeks. Method 1, boiling. So dealing with the water, their electric stoves were out. It maybe if the ones that had gas stoves, that still worked. A kerosene heater doesn't really fall in the category of water, but it'll boil a ton of water. They do a great job. Method 2, filtration method. If you can't boil it, you can always filter it. But the problem is you got to have the filter. You got to buy it beforehand. They range from cheap to expensive. And I've actually put them out in emails, I believe, on some group, maybe not group buys, but when they go on sale on Amazon. Third method is to purify. And you can use tablets, iodine tablets. You can use bleach, various chemical methods of purifying water. But the problem is you need to know how to do that. And you need to have the stuff. You need to have the tablets or the bleach, whatever you choose to use. This next picture is compliments of, I think they're on here, my sister and brother-in-law. My brother-in-law sent me this. I loved it. He sent it on Sunday, and he has friends and family down there, and it was kind of a wake-up call. He's like, okay, you got to start somewhere. And he sent me this, and I thought it was great because that's the point. You do got to start somewhere. And whether he's got 500 gallons or it looks like about 3 gallons, hey, he started. What you don't want to be is next year wishing you had started today. Issue number 2 was heating. So first method could be a backup power supply for your primary. If your primary heater is electric, a backup could be a generator. Now I didn't used to really push generators that hard, but I'm starting to be a believer in this. If natural gas is still working, a small generator is enough to run your furnace fan. Like in our case, most everyone has natural gas, but that fan has to push your warm air through the vents. It doesn't take much power to do that. A small generator will do it. Next one is your fireplace. Wood burning fireplace, perfect. Make sure you have the wood though for it. She said that was the problem. People were stealing wood. They're stealing everything because they had the fireplace, but they didn't have wood. Gas, electric. Again, most of us have probably natural gas fireplaces, but a lot of those fans on those fireplaces are requiring electricity. That's another plus for the generator. Method 3, we talked about the kerosene heater. These put off a lot of heat. Kerosene is indoor safe. It's very efficient. It'll heat up your food. It'll boil your water. Just plan your heating around your mills. And method 4, an electric space heater. Again, this is going to require a generator. I've got 2 or 3 of them, just little electric heaters. I know I have a generator, so I'm going to be able to plug those in, and I can heat certain rooms if I need to. And then method 5 is propane heater. Just a word on these, be careful. There are indoor safe propane heaters, but not all propane heaters are indoor safe. So make sure the one you get is indoor safe. And all this stuff, issue 1 with water, I have modules on water. This one I have modules on heating. To cooking, many of you have a barbecue, great backup if your stove is electric and it goes out. Many of you have natural gas. Your igniter might not work, but you've got, keep matches, you're good to go. Store enough fuel for your barbecue or briquettes. Method 2 is a little camp stove. I have one of these. It's I believe it's a Coleman. I think it's that exact one. And you can buy a little propane adapter that will allow you to hook up your little 2-place camp stove. They come bigger or smaller to run off a big propane tank. That'll do a lot of cooking. Method 3 is a 2 or 3 or 4-place electric cooktop. This would require a generator because it's electric, but I can't believe I missed this. I bought this last week. I never had it. And Texas opened my eyes. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have a backup to, I don't have an electric cooktop. So I bought that exact one. $18, maybe $20 on Amazon. 4th method, for those of you talented with Dutch ovens, you could do that. That's not really me. Of course, you could go, start a fire, a little fire pit in your backyard. That'd work if you know how to do that. Method 5, I put down that kerosene heater. They may not cook loaves of bread, but it will heat anything up, and it will boil a ton of water. So I'm a big believer in the kerosene heater for heating and cooking. And that's kind of what they look like. Not expensive, $80 to $150, depending on the output and some of the other little niceties that come with it. The 4th issue is lights. We'll breeze over this pretty quick. Flashlights, I make sure my kids and me and Megan have a flashlight right by our beds in a ready state. And when I say ready state, I mean with the batteries in, ready to go. We keep ours in our bed kits, and I have one in my nightstand as well. LED lanterns, these things are great. They put off 360 light. You just kind of slide the top up. They will hang. There's little magnets on the bottom if you want to attach them to your car as you're working in your car or something at night. Great to have. Cheap, $5, $6 if you buy them 3 at a time or so on sale. I've done these in group buys before. Method 3, headlamps. I like having these around. They keep your hands free is all. I mentioned the flashlights. I like to keep those in a ready state. The other lights I keep in what I call my a dark box, which is, it's just, that's it. It's where all the lights are kept. It's the box I'm looking for when it's dark, but don't keep the batteries stored in there. The batteries will eventually drain down and leak, and then it ruins your device. So those are not in a ready state, but I keep batteries with them in like a Costco package. That's what your headlamp is there. And then candles. Be careful with these. They work, but kids and pets, there's a fire hazard there. Glow sticks. They work too. The kids love them. That's why I keep them around. We keep these in our bed kits. Just a good backup to my rule of 3s, flashlight 1, lantern 2, glow stick 3. There's your 3. And then a quick word on generators. For not very much money, you can interface it to your house. So your generator will run your I say your whole house, but it'll run your distribution, your main panel downstairs. You're going to want to turn off all the non-essential stuff. You're not going to be up there doing laundry and drying stuff, but you can run your fridge, your freezer. You can run your furnace fan. If you need to run some lights, some outlets, that's exactly what this will do. And so I got main power meter on the left, and then I got a transfer switch in the middle. I just close those switches to connect up the power. And then you see the generator is plugged in there with that black cord on the right. Very slick, not expensive. And I'm kind of a big fan of that. They make dual fuel, tri-fuel generators, run off. Here's one. This is the one I bought from Costco. It runs off gasoline, propane, and natural gas. Make sure you have the fuel for it. You don't need to run this generator 24/7. That's not what it's doing. People ask me, what is your priority with a generator? Mine is house heat, refrigerators, and freezers. So I can run this 2 hours in the morning. It'll bring the house temp back up. It'll bring the fridge temp back down, shut it off, give it a break all day, and maybe turn it on again at night for an hour or two. If you need to do some cooking on a cooktop or run an electric heater, you can do that. But you don't need to run it 24/7. So they are efficient in the sense you're not just burning through gasoline or whatnot all the time. You can be efficient about it. So that's what I wanted to throw in on the Texas stuff. What I want to cover from here on out has to do with, it's kind of targeted to emergency preparation with our kids and making sure our kids are involved and know what they need to do in certain situations. And real quick, my approach to this comes from my airline training. Every single leg, every single flight, the captain and I talk about what the immediate threats are. If it's Paris, it might be a weather, it might be a language barrier. If it's a red eye to New York or Atlanta, which I'm actually doing tonight, we will discuss the late night threats of flying red eyes. So identify the threats, and then we talk about, okay, how can we mitigate these threats? What can we do? Have the charts out. If we question a clearance, we'll ask them again, whatever. And then drills are very important. We do these every 9 months. We go back to the simulator and we do 2 days of training, and we drill everything that we haven't seen in a while, like engine failures, hydraulics, electric failures. You saw that United flight where the engine basically chewed itself up. It looks terrible and it made the news, but the pilots were certainly comfortable in handling that. Because they drill it. And that's what we need to do with our kids. So first, identifying threats here in Salt Lake City. Got severe storms. You guys remember the flood of '83. Winter storms are not uncommon to us. We had our dress rehearsal with earthquakes in March of last year. Wildfires, we've seen plenty of those. I had this on the list before before 2020, I promise. Pandemic, we used to always kind of laugh at that one, but not anymore. Economic downturns. Tornadoes, we saw that. EMPs, that's a scary one. Home invasions, house fires, job loss, political, social unrest. Started seeing some of that last year and also in January of this year, and November, I suppose, last year. I want to talk about earthquakes and house fires as it pertains to us, of course, but also keeping your kids involved with this. So philosophy on emergency prep, most people think emergency prep, go out and buy all this stuff, survive it if I have all this, which, ironically, I just got done talking about buying a bunch of stuff, which is fine, but your priority needs to be on education, especially with the kids, because if you can't make it through the initial disaster, what's the point? You need to survive the aftermath. So education, and then, work right into the acquisition of equipment and supplies. So with this in mind, talk to your family, create a family plan. This is a great family home evening activity. Talk about what you're going to do before an earthquake, before a fire, before any event that you want to discuss. What do you do during these events? Make sure your kids know what they're supposed to do. What do you do after? And we're going to talk about rally plans with that. That's a very important part of it. I'll get to that. So house fires is the first one I want to talk about, because I feel like house fires and earthquakes are really our two biggest threats. And that's why I picked these two for tonight. I have a whole module on these. There's a reference there, but it's on the website. House fires, what to do before a house fire. This is where you can go through with your kids into well, I'll get into this first. It is a fact that kids die in more home fires than school fires. Does anyone have any idea why this would be? This is a check to see if anybody's awake.
I would imagine it's because they go over these drills at school and not at home.
And that's exactly why. You ask your kids about fire drills in schools, and they're like, yeah, we know what to do. We do them, I think they do them 4 times a year. Every quarter they try. They know exactly what to do. And of course, there's a huge parental presence at school. But at home, kids have been asked, what are you doing? They're like, I don't know. Never practiced it. So talk to your kids about that. Smoke alarms, test them every 6 months and do it while your kids are around. I used to try and be, kind of respectful of the kids. I don't want to scare them because, heaven forbid, a smoke alarm scares us when it goes off. So I really wouldn't test them. I do it while they're at school. One time I decided to test it while they were around, and 2 of my 3 kids ran in the room and said that one thing that no emergency prep nerd wants to hear. And that is, what was that? I'm like, you're kidding. You don't know what that was? So test them with your kids around. Make sure they know what it is, what it means, and what they're supposed to do. Fire extinguishers, I cover this on the site. They're good to have. Kitchen is where most of the fires start. Laundry room's common, utility room, garage. I keep one in the bedroom because, well, they're cheap. Make sure your doors and windows are clear. Oftentimes people, these are your egress points. People often put a piece of furniture in front of a window. So walk through the rooms, talk to the kids about how to get out of every single room. 2 ways to get out. One's going to be the door. The other is going to be the window. That's why code requires a window in every room that's going to be habitated as far as living in. If you have a 2nd-story floor, that's going to require a ladder or something similar. Just like this, they're not very expensive. I think $30 to $50. Show your kids how they're used, and if there's ever an issue of them getting out their door, they're not trapped. So, learn teach them how to open all the windows and do it periodically with them. I've walked through all the rooms with my kids and said, do you know how to open this window? Show me. I make them show me sometimes. Window well grates, if they're super heavy and your kids can't push them up, they're no good. They've got to be able to get out. Teach them, discuss it with them. And I recommend drilling it with them twice a year, even if it's just, maybe it's a drill where you actually use the smoke alarm and have them do it, or walk through it at least with them, just so they know, so it's fresh on their minds. During a house fire, this is fairly critical, especially with our younger kids. And I do realize some of you out there don't have kids. It's, this pertains to everybody, but I wanted to make sure we covered the kids. Get low and go, don't question, but react. I've been in hotels where the fire alarm goes off. People don't react to it. They just stay in their rooms, believe me. Doors versus windows. The door is the safest, but talk to your kids about touching the doorknob. It's a conductor of heat if it's any kind of a metal. If it's warm, they can't get out. Have them understand how to decide which way to go. Young kids tend to think they can hide from fires, especially if they were the ones that started the fire. They think they're going to get in trouble, and they'll go hide under a bed. It's a very sad stories that you hear. To kids, firefighters can look pretty scary, and it's been reported that when they see this, they hide from them. And I think it's important to let them know that these guys are they're looking for you. They're wanting to help you. After the house fire, this is where we get into rally plans. Make sure someone calls 911. the last thing as a parent you want to be is outside, not seeing all of your kids and having that sickening feeling, not knowing where they are. Well, it could be your kids are running around looking for you. Hopefully they're not looking for you in the house. So talk about your rally plan. I have a whole module on drills and rally plans. Where are you going to meet? We talked a while ago with my family, and I asked them, where should we meet? And, came up, let's meet in the middle of the circle. Great. Except for those fire engines that are going to be showing up doing about 40 miles an hour to get to our house. You don't want your kids in the road. So we've decided to pick an alternate location in front of not our house, a neighbor's house, away from, maybe away from the structure of that house, but not too close to the road either, maybe by a mailbox or something. So that this way you can ensure everyone's accounted for. If your kids aren't at your rally point, there is a reason why, and there's only one reason why, and that's what the firefighters need to know. And that's the first thing they're going to ask. Make sure your kids know not to go back in for things or pets, or anything. So went through kind of quick on that because I want to spend a little more time on the earthquakes. There's a module on this one as well. And I should have printed it off and emailed it to you, and I could do that. There's a big list of what to do before an earthquake, during an earthquake, and after an earthquake. And they're all on the site. But before, this is another good one you can do with your kids. Walk through every single room and check for the hazards. These are things we often overlook. Any item that can fall on the bed needs to be secured or moved. And we'll get to that real shortly. Secure your water heaters, dressers, mirrors, shelves, any heavy items. Once you get your mindset there, it doesn't take long for your mind to start looking at stuff going, oh, that picture above their bed could fall and hurt them. Identify the safe places. Where are the safe places inside? Where are the safe places outside? We'll get into those. Teach, discuss, and drill twice a year. Same thing as the fire drills. Sometimes this discussion is just as simple as, as they're getting ready for bed. Hey guys, let's just talk real quick about earthquakes. Okay. What are you going to do? What do you think? What do you think the place is going to look like? How are you going to get out? Discuss it with them. Does anyone know what the most common injury? There was an earthquake. It was a magnitude 6.7. It was in Northridge, California in 1994. What was the most common injury? Someone throw it out there.
The feet cut.
The feet? Does that happen? Glass in people's feet. And that's sad because after an earthquake, it's 6 points. What's that?
I said we read your module.
I cheat.
Everyone gets that. You don't have to think very long about it. But if you think about it, I'll take my 5-year-old. The last thing I want after a big earthquake is him running around scared, looking for me and screaming, and now his feet are bleeding profusely nonetheless because he's it's 3 a.m. and good luck getting medical attention after a big earthquake. So this is such a big deal, but it's so easily hedged against as long as you address it beforehand. And that's exactly where I want to go with this. I'm sorry, you guys have been following me for a while. You're probably rolling your eyes because I pound bed kits. I just think they're so important. And I want to run through it real quick with you guys. And this is the whole purpose of the bed kit are the shoes. And that's why. I got a video on the site that covers all the bed kits. It's right there in that bed kit module. But just to run through it, they're so easy. I think they cost, $10 or $15 or $20, whatever, to put together. And the point is with the, for the kids to know that their shoes are always right there and everything else on this list, they're right there, and following an earthquake, all they need to do is put their shoes on, just get those shoes on. So got a few items here. I'm going to go through each one. I just took a picture of my bed kit. This sits under my bed. This is the contents of it. Shoes, I think red was cool once. Maybe it's not anymore. Maybe that's why they're in the bed kit. Lights. I have the lanterns for my kids. They love them. These are the lights that are in the ready state. They use them all the time. And they always know they're there, and they always know they need to put them back. You adults, this is the adult bed kit, by the way. Sturdy gloves. This is an absolute must. If you're going to, after an earthquake, go try and help your kids, protect your hands. You take care of your hands, they'll take care of you. Get some sturdy gloves in there. Pocket knife, I just think a knife is good practice. Their respirator masks. I think those are important to have as well, in case there's a fire and there's smoke and you're trying to, assist your kids or something, or it's dusty, incredibly dusty after an earthquake. The pry bar. This is a recent ad of mine. You'll see 2 little holes there in the middle. Those actually fit the gas shutoff valve. So this pry bar will shut off your gas outside the house. But the pry bar, you got this door that's a geometric square in a geometric square door frame, and your house shakes a little bit. It doesn't take much to jam that door. And, a foot could work. The criminals have been using pry bars for years. They must work pretty well. So I figured they're good enough for me too. I threw a fire extinguisher in mine just about a month ago because I had a spare one sitting around. I thought, why not? I had room in the kit. If for some reason I need to get out of the house during a fire, I suppose I'd rather have a fire extinguisher in my hand. And then clothes is necessary. This is up to you guys. I have stuff in my kit, clothes for me, because I don't sleep in what I consider something that could be doubled as clothing, whereas kids kind of do. Their jammies kind of work for that. So that's kind of what I have, just the basics. And it slides under my bed. So the child kit, super simple. That's all it is. This is my little 5-year-old, my little guy's kit. Got his little shoes there. He's got his lantern. He always knows where that is. He's got glow sticks, just a little backup to light. Kids are, when it comes to light, they're terrified when it's dark. Their whole world changes. So I gave him a backup to his light, and he loves Halloween time because he knows we recycle these snap lights every year, and he gets to go pull all these out and use them. So he loves them. He knows how they work. The whistle, it's hard to hear a kid maybe screaming or crying, but and they're going to get hoarse, and if it's dusty, they can't scream. But I'll tell you what, one thing I've learned from my kids is they can blow a whistle. They can create a lot of noise. And then clothes for the kids. Like I said, it's up to you on this one. I don't keep clothes for them. They grow too fast. Their jammies usually will work. And if it's so important that we need our 72-hour kits, they have clothes in there. But as far as the adults go, I felt like I needed clothes for me. So that's his kit. It sits under his bed. We pull it out periodically so he knows what it looks like, what's in there. So that's the.
Hey, Mark.
Yes, Jeff.
Jeff Hill here.
Yeah.
Can I just share 2 things, because I'm one of those weird people that actually went to all different and make these underbed kits.
Sure.
One of the things that I did for my kids, because I agreed with you, they have their jammies, but I went down to DI and I bought a sweatshirt for every one of my kids that was a little too big. It cost me, for all my kids, cost me less than $10. But I just figured if it's winter, they got their jammies, they can throw that sweatshirt on, and it's that much more fire protection, or it's that much more cold protection if the earthquake in the winter or whatever. So that
sweatshirt was on this list, right?
So that was an easy one. And then the other thing I was going to mention real quick was that I saw your plastic containers, and I went to a bunch of effort to get some plastic containers, and then I figured out all the different beds in my family were of different heights. And so the containers wouldn't fit under half the beds. So once again, that's why I went to DI and spent $3 a piece on some nice duffel bags.
Sure.
Put on my kits in those, and that worked out really nice for us.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that. Yeah, awesome. That works. So, like I say, all this stuff is whatever works for you guys. My goal is to get your mind in that direction. Maybe you don't need a pry bar, that's fine. Don't include it. Up to you. During the earthquake, believe it or not, when I was growing up, they always told us to get down under stuff, which is still okay advice. But don't try and get out during the shaking. If you're in bed, they're now saying stay there. You've already gone through the house or the bedrooms and made sure nothing's going to fall on the beds. You did that beforehand. So if they're in bed, they're safe there. Just tell them, pull the pillow over your head. No movement is better than kind of trying to move around. In the case of one of our, in our room, that if one of our kids gets off their bed, they have to walk by a window, and I don't want them there. So I'd rather have them just stay in the bed. Not in the bed, get to a safe place, and talked about doing that with the beforehand stuff. If you're inside, your interior walls, especially a load-bearing wall, are great. Your door frames, under a table. There's also furniture voids. That's not under the bed, but on the side of the bed. If you're crouched down on the side of a bed and somehow a dresser did fall on the bed, that void under there will do a good job of protecting you. And then after the earthquake, that's going to be similar as far as the rally plan goes, but get those shoes on first. That's if I get nothing else across today, it's to the shoes. I don't know why I pound the shoes so hard, but I do. There will be broken glass everywhere. Our 5.7 was mild. That was a dress rehearsal for a bigger event that may or may not happen. And get out. Grab a light. It's right there. If the electricity's out and it's night, you'll be glad you had it. Get to your rally point. Same things apply. Once everyone's accounted for. So after our 5.7, I made sure my family was safe. That was the first thing I did, and which ironically enough entailed waking up 2 of my 3 kids who slept through it. But once everyone was safe, and I decided the house was really undamaged, I went through the entire house and checked the water, the gas, the electricity, utilities. I went through and checked everything on this. And I have a whole module on this, the home preparedness module. I think I put it out in an email for those that follow me. And I'm just going to run through this real quick. Do you know where? So, okay, in my case, I know all this stuff, but when I'm on a trip, it does my wife no good that I know how to do something. So she needs to know as well. So to those of you that don't know this stuff, learn how to turn off your stop and waste, the main valve to your house. That's a PRSOV valve, your city valve, your hot water heater, sink, faucets, toilets, dishwasher. Your dishwasher has a supply line. So does your refrigerator. If it, has an ice maker or water. Real quick, we had a couple of years ago, I had a dishwasher that was leaking. Okay, I know what to do, right? I went under the sink, which the dishwasher pulls water from the sink, and I just turned the valve off. Well, that valve snapped clean off, and it started spraying everywhere under my sink. Okay, I still know what to do. No problem. I ran down into our utility room where the main water valve is located, and I went and shut that thing off. Well, as I'm turning it, as I hit the stop, it broke, if you could believe that, and started spraying everywhere. So now I've got water leaking under the sink and at my main line. So what do you do? What do you do there? I knew there was one more valve out at the street, and I ran out there. I knew it required a tool. I didn't know what tool, so I grabbed vice grips, the tool for all tools, and I went out there and I turned off the city water to the house so I could go back and replace both those valves inside. So know how to shut that stuff off. Gas, main gas meter, know how to shut that one off. Did you know it requires a tool? Did you know that Well, no, I won't go there. That tool is cheap. It's like $5. I have one. I bury it right there at my valve. And if I ever go out there, my little pry bar has the tool too, but I know the tool's right there and I can shut that gas meter off. And I've had to do that in the past couple of years. I had to do it once. Know how to start and restart your furnace. Fireplace, it's got a gas valve too. Electricity, that's where your breakers are, your distribution panel, your main, know how to reset those, know how to turn those off if you need to. If there's a brownout, your lights are really starting to flicker or to dim in a bad way. You hear your appliances changing, go kill your breaker. I mean, don't run the risk of damaging your appliances and then figure out what's going on and turn it back on when you feel it's safe. 72-hour kits. You know what? I would have been run out if I didn't say something on 72-hour kits, although this is a whole module and I'm just not going to go into the whole thing. I do believe they're very important. I have a whole module on it. I have a video on there as well. What I've done with this module, they say it can take up to 72 hours for help to arrive. That is an old number. They are now, I just had a meeting tonight at 6 o'clock tonight before this with Cottonwood Heights emergency management, the emergency management team for the city. And they say, you're lucky if we get to you in a week. So have supplies on hand for that. Yeah, FEMA's saying longer. Katrina, Sandy, Harvey, they all taught us that. They're now saying 96 hours, but I say as much as you can. Packs, 72-hour kits, whatever you want. There's backpacks. I want to talk about buckets. I have, I'm going to see if I can do this really quick with you guys. I'm going to jump over to here. Going to go to my 72-hour kit module. And here, you see this picture here. I've got my backpacks. Oops, behind. I have 2 buckets, and I keep a lot of our supplies in these buckets. But this is a lid here. You can also use right here a pool noodle. Well, these buckets are your makeshift. They're your latrine for physiological needs. If you are displaced out of the house, or in the case even with Texas, if the water stops running, your toilets are not going to work. So I keep those 2 stuff in those buckets because I want to have the buckets. You can even put a little toilet paper there around the handle, which is kind of cool. And then with the 72-hour kits, I list every single item I have in my kits and I prioritize them. Here's my priority 1 items. I say these items, work on getting them. They're toilet paper, camp stove. This is a drinking cup, an Nalgene bottle. This is stuff you need to have, your work gloves. Priority 2 items. Okay, work on those down the road. A lot of these are I mentioned rule of 3s. These are your tier 2 items, maybe. Backups to there's your lighters right there. There's a backup to your matches. Matches are in priority 1. Priority 3 items. Hey, these are niceties. Don't have to have them. 2-way radios. A lot of people choose not to have them. Glow sticks, folding shovel. So anyway, that's how I've broken this down. I would love to do a full module on 72-hour kits, and it would take a full module, and I'll probably get to that. We can do that sometime, but I'm not going to go much into that today. Because 1, 2, 3 items, video on site. The very last thing I want to mention, can you all see me? I don't know if my video's on or not, because I don't see myself.
Yes, I can see you.
Okay, you can. Then I can show you this. Although, so the home manual, you've heard me talk about this. I'll show you this in a second. If all these preparations you're doing, doesn't mean, again, not the home manual, like the utilities and stuff of the house. It does me no good if my family doesn't know where this stuff is and I'm gone. I got this great generator, a great interface. Power goes out. I'm in Europe and Megan doesn't have a clue. Fortunately, she's going to go knock on Jeff's door because he's going to know. But I need my family to know how to do this. So I created this home manual, and it's not very thick, but it does take time. It's not a project, it's a process. It never really ends. But I have included absolutely everything in here that they need to know. You know, they all know where the manual is. When a sitter comes over, I make sure they know where this is, because it's got emergency contact numbers. It's got all the information one would need to know. I have given a backup. Jeff, don't you have a backup to this? Did I give you a copy? Jeff Hill? Jeff has a copy of this. I recommend, giving a trusted neighbor a copy, and also keep one in your 72-hour kits, because this is where some of your critical information is. I have a whole template on my website, the home manual section of my website. You can download that whole template. It's basically what I've done, and I've removed critical information that pertains to us. So, but you can use an example and start building your own, add your own stuff. So I guess I don't need to show you mine, because here it is. So this is what it is. I just grabbed just a few copies. You can see the tabs over there. I have everything in there. You want to know about our heaters? It's all there. Our water cooking options, shelter, sleeping. I got many of these tabs here. Lights, food storage, communications. Anyway, that's how I've broken this down. Here's our emergency contacts. I'm not going to stay here very long, because there's a couple people on this meeting who recognize their own phone number. I explain what, how to shut stuff off, where breakers are, and here's my gas valve on the over there on the right. Here's how the generator works. Here's our communications plan. These are just a few randoms. Here's our 72-hour kits with every item listed in there. This does take time, but right now, time we have. If you look over some of these things, I've got written in red here. Don't look too close, because I'm past some expirations on here, but I write the expiration dates so I don't have to pull out every item in my 72-hour kit and see if it's expired. I can look right here. Apparently I'm due, and I knew this, I'm due for a big update on this stuff, but I will know exactly what to buy without even touching a 72-hour kit. And that covers the home manual, and it really covers everything that I wanted to talk tonight. I wanted to leave a few minutes for questions, but I've got an email that I try and send out weekly. If you wanted to be on that, you can, there's a link on my site, or you can email me at emergencypreputah.com. And I have Instagram and Facebook, but I think they're both, I don't do tons with those. I put stuff out every now and then. So does anyone have any questions? I know I went through a lot of stuff, and I went through kind of quick. I just wanted to introduce some of these concepts and let you know that I have lots more information on that site. Everything on that site, or everything that I get from Sandy City, is on that site. I didn't mention that in the intro. I'm a Sandy City emergency prep leader. And when we go through and they do a big, huge thing on cooking, I come home and I throw it on my site, because it's great information. So are there any questions or anyone comments? And maybe not.
Any questions for Mark?
Thank you so much, Mark.
Everyone must be asleep.
This is awesome, Mark. Especially, it's like a little dipping the toe in the pool of everything that I think we'll have coming in coming months. We'll have a lot more that arises. And let's see. I know somebody just posted a chat, but I'm not sure where my chat window is at. It's not popping up here. Let me change.
It's in more.
Yeah, mine's more too.
It's Richard Grossen saying
job.
great job, which I agree. Great job, Mark.
There we go. I got it. Yeah. It was just in the full screen mode. So yeah.
Yeah. So
Mark, I have a question. If on those LED lanterns, are those if you keep the batteries in them, is there a problem with that?
There could be any device you keep the batteries in. They will. That device, even though your lights are off, there's an ever so slight draw. it will deplete that battery. And once that battery drains entirely, it can start to corrode. And you've all seen that white gunk inside, inside the lights. It can ruin the light. So if it's not like a primary light next to your nightstand, I would pull the batteries out. Or what you can do is, sometimes you can keep the batteries in there and just have a little piece of paper in between the battery and the lead. But I think that's kind of silly, because then you wonder why the light doesn't work, because batteries are in there and you forget the little papers in there. I'd take the batteries out if you're not using it all the time. It could damage it over time
Okay, thanks.
as that battery depletes itself and corrodes and leaks.
Mhm.
And those lanterns that you helped us buy, Mark, have a little chamber in the top to keep some spare batteries right in the lantern.
Oh, that's really
I didn't know that, actually.
cool.
I got some of those too, so.
Yeah, so I keep the batteries in mine, and then the spare ones are right up there. So if I pull it out and it's dead, I just screw off the top and switch the batteries that fast.
Oh, that's cool.
So if we want to order more of those, do we just look for LED lantern on Amazon?
Yeah, that's where I got them. I can send you the link, but they're not expensive. Several companies make them. They're all pretty good. I look at the reviews. But
You know what?
Yeah.
One thing we've done too, Mark, is, and I'm not very great at it. And I'm not nowhere near to your level, but a great time to kind of think of like just readdressing your 72-hour kits or some of the batteries is on conference. So every 6 months, like we pull out our, bed kits or our 72-hour kits and say, okay, looks like those granola bars are pretty gone. So let's replace those or whatever,
Yeah.
So it's just kind of, and even if you just got that once here, you'd be in good shape, really. Just kind of a regular.
Yeah, I agree. To that point, with my fuel, like I store a little bit of gasoline for the generator, right? Well, I cycle that fuel out on conference, spring and fall. I dump it in my car and I go fill it up again, because it'll go bad. So I use those conferences. Thanks for bringing that up all the time. They're my reference points.
We've got a question from Angie Krog.
Yes. Just one other thing that I've kind of had
I
to,
like that.
yeah, I raised my hand. One thing I had to kind of train myself on, when I go through my kids' clothes and take them to the DI, before I DI them, I take like something that my 12-year-old doesn't fit anymore.
Mhm.
And if I want to get rid of it, instead of DIing it, I'll put it in my 8-year-old's kit, so that she has clothes, because time flies, and before you know it, you go check those kits and you've got 3T clothing for your 10-year-old. So before I take a bag to DI, old shoes, clothes, I just kind of recycle that way, like maybe once or twice a year, and that way they have updated clothes.
Angie, case in point, we had a thing. I can't remember where we were, but we had some kind of a car kit thing. And my daughter, I think she was probably 15 at the time. She was wearing a sweatshirt that she had when she was like 10. So needless to say, it was more of a t-shirt than it was a sweatshirt. So
Yeah.
Very cool. Thanks, Angie. So yeah, Tyler, if there's no one else.
okay. All right. Well, hey, I'll just go ahead and stop the recording. I just want to say thanks again to you,